Keith, last time I was here with you at St. Michael's Church in the graveyard, it was cold. Now it's hot. I have these very vivid memories, very pleasant ones. Some people would tell me, though, that the conscious feeling that I have, those qualia in my mind, is really an illusion. And so I have to ask myself, what is consciousness? How can we begin to define what that impression, that feeling, that internal subjective feeling really is?
Well, I find that a very odd question. What is consciousness? It's like saying, what is existence? And you say, well, don't you know that things exist? And it's like, what is consciousness? Well, you're speaking from consciousness, you're experiencing it. I think I just say consciousness is the immediate awareness of objects. And those objects could be physical objects. If you're looking at things, there could be thoughts. Thoughts are objects of consciousness. There's a content of consciousness, which is thoughts, and there is someone who is conscious of those objects. So you seem to have a subject being aware of various different sorts of objects. Mm-hmm. And I don't think you can get any simpler than that. You just have to say, as philosophers like G.E. Moore used to say, well, very simple concepts are not further analyzable. And we know what they are. How? In consciousness, because we're conscious of them. So it's a basic term, really. It's like reality. You say, what is reality? Well, it's you're a bit stuck because it's so general.
Well, some cognitive psychologists would point to illusions where we have different impressions of the same thing. Some brain scientists point to different brain systems that can feel like they're part of the same mechanism, but can be separated through injury or through different types of artificial stimulations. And these brain scientists can begin to disaggregate these different systems. And so what you think is this unified whole turns out not to be.
Well, okay, but you're still learning that that's true by being conscious of it. I mean, your knowledge is what counts. And I think philosophers in the British tradition have usually said, all knowledge begins with experience, that is, with consciousness. That's where it begins. And it can't ever take you to a place which undermines consciousness itself. So I think I feel quite dogmatic in saying that if somebody comes up with a theory which shows that consciousness is an illusion, there's something wrong with them. Because against what are you measuring that illusion?
Yeah, I think there's a spectrum. I think some people, I know some people, say consciousness is an illusion. Others want to eliminate it totally, eliminative. Others would say that at the very least it's not fundamental. It's something that is the froth on the wave, the epiphenomena, and all these things going on. We have this feeling that my consciousness is in charge of doing things, but at best it's just aware of what my brain is doing.
Well, theories about the brain are very little known by most people. Most people don't even know how the brain works. And certainly people like Aristotle didn't think the brain was what thought at all. So that's a theory. I mean, theories about the brain are theories. Whereas consciousness is more fundamental than that. Everybody knows what consciousness is. When you wake up in the morning, you're conscious. I mean, there you are. So you have awareness of something.
So from Aristotle's times to now, science has made continuous progress so that things that we thought we didn't understand, that were these kind of mysteries, we have progressively understood more and more. Why is consciousness excluded from that category?
Well, it's not excluded. I'm just saying that consciousness isn't really a mystery. I mean, consciousness is something we all are immediately aware of. It's the most obvious thing there is. So to make it a mystery must require some very sophisticated theory. I mean, when a lot of neuroscientists now say, what is the problem of consciousness? What they mean is, how does the way the brain works correlate with what we're conscious of?
I mean, it's a problem to them, but it's not a problem to you.
It's not a problem to anybody, really, apart from somebody who's got a theory that the brain is producing this thing that they want to explain in materialist terms. It's got to be a material thing somehow.
So consciousness becomes a mystery when you insist on explaining it in material terms, according to you. If you're willing to go beyond that, it's no problem.
It's no problem. Really, the problem is what you mean by a physical object, I think, and what you mean by the brain. I mean, I know the brain is a physical object, but if you say, what is a physical object, and you go to a quantum physicist, it's not so easy to give an answer to that question. And whereas with consciousness, you're not involved in that deeply theoretical realm. It's just a straightforward thing that is fundamental to the whole of your knowledge. So you cannot do away with it and still claim to be knowing something.
You take consciousness to a much higher level. You've talked about cosmic consciousness, the mind of the universe or behind the universe, God. How do you see consciousness on a grand scale? Is there a spectrum of consciousness? Is our consciousness part of some grander thing? How do you see the relationships?
Well, I think there is a big divide among philosophers about this topic, of course. And one of the people who taught me, Freddie Eyre, certainly thought that the whole of knowledge begins with experience, sense experience, also thoughts, anything that you're aware of, and you build up ideas about physical objects in a very sophisticated way. Babies don't do it. You learn how to do it. And you develop theories about what physical objects are and how they exist. So I belong to that general school, which you might call empiricist philosophy. Now, some people think empiricists aren't people who believe in consciousness, but of course they do believe in consciousness. They believe consciousness is the only ultimate reality. Okay, really, that surprises some people, but it's true. Now, if that's true, you could say, what sorts of consciousness could there be? Do all consciousnesses have to be like ours? I mean, are dogs conscious in the same way that we are? Are ants conscious? Very interesting questions. I think they're real questions which we aren't able to answer then. So you can ask about super consciousness too. Could there be a consciousness very much more aware of things than we are? So could there be one cosmic consciousness which was aware of everything that was going on in the universe? You don't have to call that God, though people like me would. But if you say, is it possible? Well, if you start from saying that consciousness is what is the most obvious and real thing there is, then it is possible there could be sorts of consciousness which embraced knowledge of everything and which were able to have thoughts about that.
You go beyond possible. You believe it to be the case.
Oh, I believe it to be the case, yes. Though I can't say I have the same sort of certainty about that as I do about the fact that I'm now awake. I'm perfectly certain I'm talking to you and I'm awake. And, as Descartes said, even if it's a dream, I'm conscious of it. So there you are. And you can't get rid of that. But God's not quite like that. I mean, I don't really know there's a mind which is conscious of everything, but I think it's a good possibility. And then for other reasons, not just for that reason alone, I think that there actually is such a consciousness, a divine consciousness.